Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to A to Z Running. Hi everyone, welcome to the A to Z Running podcast where we help runners thrive. I'm Andi.
I'm Zach.
This week on the A to Z Running podcast, we have Polish pro runner Alicja Konieczek of On Athletics Club to discuss goal setting. If you're anything like me, like all the current world records, all kinds of records have been falling like we talked about last week, and then the races that are happening, the Olympic trials, these things get me like really fired up and excited. But how do we execute goals, and how do we discover what our goals should be, and then the daily process? So that's why we brought on Alicja to discuss this further.
And if you at all are concerned about why I am so frequently looking down, is because at this exact moment we are also watching the U.S. Olympic trials and trying to make sure we keep you up to date on all of the happenings there, which we will do at least for the first weekend because it's a multi-weekend event. But that aside, we do want to make sure that you're paying close attention to some keen takeaways in the conversation with Alicja. Notably, things like why should we set goals, how can we create weekly or short-term goals to reach the big ones, and how goal setting during a return from things like sickness or injury can be, and of course is, hugely beneficial. Now, notably, because you want to know all of these great things and more, you need to head to AtoZrunning.com, click the word follow, and then on all of the places where you listen and or watch, like YouTube, click subscribe so that you don't have to do the tedious work of trying to find our content. We'll just get it right to you.
I love technology that way. So listener comment, we do this every week. There was a post that I put up that was kind of about like the microcosm of life and running, and a really nice comment from Molly. She said, "This is my favorite post of yours. The trials of miles help prepare our minds and hearts for both the blessings and tragedies we will surely encounter in this life." And if you want to see that post, I put that in our A to Z Running blog post, but also you can go to Instagram and find us at A to Z Running.
In other words, if you want to know why Molly thought this was a great post, you need to go see the original post.
I'm not going to read it for you right now. We have lots of stuff to get to.
Enlightened. And of course, as Molly noted, that's a very true reality, the trials of miles and such. And also keep in mind that if you feel like the trials of miles is taking, let's say, a very severe toll on your body, then perhaps you need a little more focus on recovery.
Yeah.
Yes, you know where I'm headed with this. It's time to talk about roll recovery with Leah Fallon again, and this time we're getting right down to the details of it. So now that you've got your own custom R8, and if you don't, it means you have failed to listen to the number of times I've suggested explicitly that you must go to rollrecovery.com to find out how to build your own R8. So now that you've done that, you need to know how and where to use it well. And this actually is a point of some confusion and contention for users who don't necessarily look into the details here. So Lewis, once more, here to explain it. And just remember that those of you only listening, well, you need to get with the times and watch on places like YouTube, because that's what the kids do. And all adults know in our hearts, we're really just trying to be kids. And so go to YouTube and see Lewis demonstrate this R8.
The R8, most people are really tempted to just like pull it apart, and you can feel like the strain on this. So say goodbye to that method if you have any kind of shoulder injury or just like general weakness. Instead, what we actually have you do is lay it flat down onto the muscle, and then you don't have to pull it apart at all. You can just push down and it'll pull right onto the muscle. And then from there, you can start moving it back and forth. That's how the R8 is going to best get on your actual muscles and then do the work for you from there. So I just showed you how to do it on your on your IT bands and your adductors and stuff like that. Quads and hamstrings obviously would also be easy to just switch right over and do that. A lot of people make the mistake, we found, that of just, if they're trying to get their calves, using the same roller on the calf and then the shin bone. which you can understand might be a little bit painful. So we make sure that we tell people to massaging the bone isn't going to do anything. It's the little muscles on the side of the shin bone that you're going to target. So calves, soleus as well, the little teardrop shaped muscle directly underneath the calf, that is largely responsible for a lot of plantar fasciitis cases. If that's really taut, then it's pulling up on the fascia underneath your foot and it's causing you pain. So I've always said, that pain, that sharp dagger-like pain underneath your foot, for those of you out there who have ever dealt with plantar fasciitis, you know what I'm talking about. That's just the symptom, that's not the actual cause of it. If you can get the RA on that soleus muscle and just slowly move it up and down, it's going to release a lot of things in there. And if you can kind of relax that muscle and then lengthen it as well with the RA, which is what it's meant for, that will relieve plantar fasciitis pain right then and there. On top of the leg muscles, we don't want to limit it there. The R8 is actually, we've found out, like swimmers and climbers and everything like using it with the arms. You just push your arm right through and it can go over the forearm and it can go all the way up on the bicep as well. So on top of the arms, even the glutes, this guy will get right in there. So there's really very few parts of the body that this won't benefit.
Thanks again, Lewis. Remember to head to rollrecovery.com so you can build your own R8 and check out all their other recovery products. Now, let's tell you the good and amazing from the world of running. Many exciting things to share with you right now, including, to kick things off, a number of great reports from some of our own athletes, some of the A to Z runners whom we support, and a few of these just running marathons recently and doing so in really quite impressive performances. So let's give some shout outs to Kate, Ashley, Pete, and Kathy,
Woo-hoo. All
running official marathon PRs in this last weekend. Kathy's was also a big-time Boston qualifier.
Nice work,
as
Kathy.
Well, and quite sizable when I say big time. And then also a note that Dan, who ran a half marathon, won his age group, which was part of his goal there, and mission accomplished. Well done, Dan. I did want to mention, amongst these PRs, it seems, and it's not that it's a contest necessarily, but Kate has now brandished what is the most sizable marathon PR as of yet of any athletes we've supported. And certainly you don't hear about this often, but she ran an over 1 hour marathon PR.
Wow.
So if you would like to know how to run an hour PR in a marathon, actually, in fact, if you would like to know, we asked Kate that very question, or something similar to it, like, what did you do in your training that helped lead to this moment? And she has her own thoughts to share directly with you.
Hey everyone, Kate here, checking in with you after celebrating a big marathon PR this weekend in Charlevoix, Michigan. I shaved over an hour off my previous marathon time, something like 1 hour and 6 minutes. So huge accomplishment for me. Still riding that high from just such an awesome weekend. Wanted to come in and share what worked and what made that PR possible this season, besides of course having Andi and Zach as excellent coaches. Mileage was huge for me. I ran more mileage than I ever have before. It was a really smart build-up, but really just the mileage kept increasing, and I had some really high weeks. I also learned to do more effort-based running. I didn't look at the watch, and that really made it possible to run easy as I needed to on easy days, and also to run hard on the hard days without being bogged down about my watch telling me that I'm too slow or too fast. I really just ran on the effort and trusted that whatever my body was telling me that day was what I was supposed to be running for that workout. Lastly, I knew the intent of the workouts, which was a big difference for me. I always stick to the schedule, but this time around, I knew to stick to the schedule, but alternate workouts and replace it with something else if needed. So I really knew the intention of the workout, and I knew what to replace it with if I had to change it or something come up, what I could do instead of that workout that would have the same effect as the original one. So just kind of knowing the reason of a particular run that day. So all of those really came together to afford me a great PR.
Thanks, Kate, and congrats to all the A to Z runners. And I do want to mention that our previous guest pretty recently, Todd Buckingham, remember Dr. Todd? He just won the Olympic distance at the Grand Rapids Tri, so congrats. And this was like the first try that he's done in about 2 years, he said.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so congrats to Dr. Todd. And then Brittany Charbonneau, who we've had on this podcast before. I'm a huge fan. She won the Leadville Trail Marathon this weekend.
Andy likes to update you whenever Brittany wins races, which means we talk about her about every other week because she just wins trail races
She's
constantly.
crushing it, yeah. So the U.S. Olympic track and field Olympic trials is going on right now, so that's probably gathered a lot of your attention because it's a big deal.
And if it hasn't gathered your attention,
it will now.
It needs to. You're just not paying enough attention.
So it started June 18 and it goes until June 27th. And this is at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon.
The new Hayward Field.
The new Hayward Field. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Men's 10K final. We were very interested in this race, and it was very exciting. You want to tell us about it, Zach?
So this is my favorite track event to watch, which everyone is always like, really? Because it's the 10K, just running circles for 25 laps. But it is my favorite track event to watch because it doesn't happen in the same way all the time. And the longer it goes without anything surprising, the more anticipation builds. And so for 28, 29 minutes, depending on the race, it's going to be a very long anticipation build. Well, that said, there were no disappointments here. Now, we should preface this by simply saying the 10K team, who was going to make Team USA in the 10,000, was quite up in the air up until this moment. Certainly, there were some who had run some pretty fast times. If you recall, back in the winter in February, Grant Fisher and some other Bowerman Track Club fellows were running blazing fast, and Ben True, who's been there before for Team USA, is one who has, he's back as a veteran, if you will, and yet still performing well, and so strong performances from so many. Mm-hmm. Well, now that I'm trying to build your anticipation for this event, as you might guess, it came down to the wire.
Yep.
And this is the way we like to see track and field happen. And so in the 10,000 meters, when you start moving fast, you can't look back. You just got to keep it up. And these guys, they started cranking down late in the race, and it just got wild. So it was like a 6 or 7 man pack that just started really pressing and pushing, and it just kept ratcheting down faster and faster until you get to this final lap, and these guys ran. Well, the winner of the race closed in a 53-point-something second lap. Holy smokes. That's at the end of running 10,000 meters. So just kind of imagine for a moment what that would feel like. And if you're anything like the rest of us, you can't. But
I can't.
But you got to watch it so you can at least see what it looks like, because it's really incredible stuff.
Yeah.
So this was Woody Kincaid of Bowerman Track Club performing at his finest and outkicking his own teammate Grant Fisher, who was then second, and then in third in a strong run, chasing them the whole way and really putting their money down, was Joe Clecker of On Athletics Club. And we've been talking lots about the OAC around here. As a matter of fact, our guest today represents that very same group. Well, Joe Clecker did not disappoint. He's been looking strong this whole season and just showed up in a big way. So good.
So good. And it's an exciting story for him, too, because he has a legacy of track and field. And, his mother was an Olympian, so very cool stuff.
So those three, Woody Kincaid, Grant Fisher, and Joe Clecker, going to the Olympics to represent Team USA in the 10,000 meters.
And Ben True, he hit the Olympic standard and will likely be the alternate.
We've been discussing this. We don't know exactly what the alternate policies and procedures are, but he was fourth.
Yeah.
And has the
standard.
standard.
Yeah.
So that puts him in that position of he could race if something were to go wrong, if things happen. At the very least, if they take alternates to the games, he would go as the alternate. So.
And previous guests, we always like to mention Sam Chalenga was 8th place and Martin Hare was 20th place. Now, hot off the press, we're recording this just after this happened. Women's 1500 final with dramatic beginnings.
Indeed.
It was
you don't want a distance race to be dramatic at the start.
No, not at all. So of course, the favorite of this event was Ali Perrier St. Pierre, and she was bumped over the rail at the very beginning of the race.
Off the track.
Yes, and perhaps that's what made Ali set such an aggressive pace. She like pressed harder after this disturbance, and in the after race interview, she did say she just wanted to get out of that. She didn't want any more of that stuff going on. So Ali Perrier won in a personal best time of 3:58.
Almost flat, like that.
Yeah.
Moving.
Yep.
And there is a headline on Let's Run that just captures it so well. And I'm going to just paraphrase because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's essentially no one ever ran a 1500 like that on pure hate before.
Oh, no. I don't know if it was hate.
Fury.
Yeah, well, it definitely is going to make you feel like a lot of adrenaline if you get pushed off the rail. So
Kara Goucher announcing the race described that exact moment where it was basically like, you know, as an athlete, you have to exert a serious amount of composure and control because the amount of adrenaline that surges through you when something disrupts your plan or your expectation. And especially someone like Ali Perrier, who is, you know, she's got a plan of how she's going to win that race. You already know that going into it based off her season. And so that kind of thing happens. And it's like, you could just abandon everything and just go crazy. And instead, she just jumped right back into the plan and then demolished everyone.
Yep. She used it for the good. And then Cora McGee hung in with those moves until the final stretch where Ellie then, you know, pulled away from her. But she still got a personal best time of 4:67. So, I mean, it brought her to a quality race, too, not only because she's now an Olympian, but because she got a personal best time. And then Heather McLean, she claimed the final spot in 4:02, which was a personal best time.
And so you notice in an experience like that, when someone takes a race out, there's a very fascinating, so especially at the championship level types of meets, when someone like Ellie just starts going hard, everyone in the field has to make a choice, and they all do it, and many of them don't realize they did it until later, but they either think that that's the move that needs to be covered, like this is where the race is happening, and so I've got to go. And that's Corey McGee didn't hesitate. She immediately was right on Ellie Perrier's shoulder and never wavered. Stayed there the whole rest of the race. But, you know, and some of the athletes in the run didn't. They watched the move happen and continued to wait. And in distance racing, that's sometimes a savvy move. You never know, though, until the runner either comes back or beats you.
Well, the 1500 meter is it's a short one, so covering moves is important in this specific event.
So I do want to say too, and not that I pretend that I know things better than the athletes in the race, but this was also a predictable thing because Ellie Perrier has shown all season that she is not only willing but very capable of running hard by herself, regardless of whether anyone chases her.
I think she likes it actually. I think she's a front runner.
I think so too.
It seems like she thrives.
Well, absolutely, she thrives because she's winning races left and right, including the U.S. Olympic trials.
Right.
However, this begs the question, and this is the question that I asked Andy as soon as I saw it happen again, which is she capable of medaling at the Olympics? Because the question being that race strategy almost definitely will not win the Olympic final, simply because she's not the fastest one in that field. And we've seen the likes of things like Sifan Hassan running 3:53 and others as well. And so the question is, does she try a strategy like that at that level, or does she change tactic? And that is so hard for runners to do who have a really well-developed strategy that's working effectively, and then at the highest stage to have to adjust is difficult. But I don't presume to think that she is a one-trick pony by any means. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to seeing that at the world stage.
See her stretched. Yep.
Yes.
Love that. So the men's 800-meter final. Now, you remember last week we talked about NCAA's Isaiah Jewett, and he is a young graduate, and he led the race immediately. He took it to the front, and then he continued to make presses. And Clayton Murphy stayed with him for each of these moves, so to speak, and then overcame Jewett in the final straightaway and took the Olympic trials win. So Clayton took the win in a time of 1:43, which is the new world leading. Yeah.
Really strong performance.
Yeah. So Isaiah Jewett did claim the second spot for Team USA in 1:43, which is a personal best time for him. And then Bryce Hoppel in third at 1:44.
which I believe may have also been a personal best for Bryce Hoppel, or very close to it. I can't recall now that I'm looking at the results in my head, and I don't remember if it said PB next to it. But one of the things about Clayton Murphy's performance there is that was only a couple of tenths off of his personal best as well.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so he's run 142.9 something, and this was 143.17. So that's really powerful and profound. And Clayton Murphy's been doing this well at the world stage for some time, and didn't necessarily look like the one to beat this season throughout, but you can never underestimate someone
who's a medalist.
A bronze medalist in 2016, and the degree of success that he's had. So it was really exciting to see that just come together, and he had it when it counted. And if you can run like that in an Olympic final, that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm. And now the headlines were talking about Donovan Brazier, and he just didn't have it in the last 200. And the reason why I want to mention this is not to, overdo the people who didn't make it, but I do want to show him some respect in this too, that, he is a human. And I think, when we see him like win gold at the World Championships, we think like, oh, this person's not really human anymore, but they are, and they have hard times and hard days. And he had an injury earlier this year, and it's just, these athletes have to go through so much to be ready at the correct time, and it just didn't work out for him this time. So, yes, Donovan Brazier didn't make it, and yes, he's capable on a different day at a different time in a different season of making this Olympic team, but just not on the day.
Bummer in that instance. But so many exciting things still going on. Women's 5,000 meter final also to note, because as we do with these distance races, we're always most fascinated by the way these kinds of things go down. And one factor here of a special note is that the women's 5,000 was run in about 95 degrees of heat. And, of course, that's the air temperature. And we all know, if we've run on a track before, that the temperature on the track is hotter.
For sure.
That rubber is like superconducting the heat that's coming down. And so whatever the temperatures were, these women were running in the worst possible conditions for distance races. And that always makes it interesting.
Yeah, so it started out slow due to this heat.
And then got slower over the course of the race. They started slow, and then it was kind of like a reasonable pace for a bit, and then they slowed way down.
But the final mile was not slow at all. In fact, the ladies in the last bit ran about a 4:32 miles, that calculated.
Oh.
Yeah, and maybe even like a 2:10 the last 800 meter. So Elise Cranny, she took the win by cranking this pace, running the final 400 in 63 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah. But she wasn't alone at the last 300 meters. So second place was Carissa Schweitzer.
Teammate.
Schweitzer, yes. And Rachel Snyder, she claimed the final Olympic spot. But I do want to mention fourth place because it was such a gutsy run by Abby Cooper. Now, I won't go on and on, but Abby ran a solo Olympic qualifier in the preliminary round because she didn't have it yet. And she knew that this final could be slow, and she wanted to be prepared with the Olympic standard.
Well, she did the thing that everyone's always just not sure what's happening until it's done. And that's in a prelim, and they only do one preliminary round in the 5,000. So they do on Friday, they ran 2 heats, and in her heat from the gun, she just starts running. And everyone's kind of like, oh, what's she doing? She's going, she's taking it out hard and such. And then, she just keeps running fast. And people start to think, this might actually be, she might do this the whole time. and then she did. So she won her heat by like 15 seconds. No one went with her. But the reason is clear, because she did not have the world standard, the Olympic standard. And you can't, even if you're top 3 in the U.S. trials, if you don't have the Olympic standard, you don't go to the games. Mm-hmm. So she needed it. And you cannot rely on a championship final to be fast. It almost never is in distance races.
And it wasn't. This race was not fast.
Especially because
until
of the temperatures.
Until the last mile.
So she made the right call. Now, of course, what that does is that puts her in a dangerous spot for the final, because you're a little bit more tired having had to do that all by yourself. But she had 3 days. She had 2 days completely off to rest. And when she showed up in the final, she clearly was ready to go again. Mm-hmm. But man, that
Fourth place.
final mile, and
Yeah.
it was just a crank. And so Elise Crane and Krisha Schweitzer did that brutal thing that teammates at a high level will do, which is both Bowerman Track Club athletes, they started trading laps, and every time someone would pass the other one, they'd accelerate a bit more, and they're just cranking down the pace. And so it's like a 71 second, a 70 second, a 67 second, a 63 second, and it's just, it's all guts at 100 degrees or more on the track temperature. Wow.
Very, very impressive. Well, coming up for the Olympic trials, there's a lot going on, but I namely want to talk about Leah Fallon because we've had her on the show a couple times in the women's steeplechase, and she looked very strong in her qualifying round. She just hung on to Emma Coburn, and
she looked like she was just on the hunt.
Yeah, she looked hungry. And I wanted to mention this quote from way back January 2 of 2020 when she came on our show, and she said this: "My main goal was to get back to a place where I was running on the track and feeling just powerful again. Feeling like my old fluid self, like I could just eat laps up. I want that back in a race. I want that spark again." And we saw that. She was eating those laps. She looked hungry, and she's still hungry. She's going to come after it on Thursday. So be watching for Leah Fallon of the OAC. And
those of you who are not watching right now don't notice that Andy's slightly tearing up as she's reading
it's
this.
just a beautiful thing to see someone come back like that. And that episode, if you'd like to listen to it, is called Feeling Powerful Again, and I'll link to that. And the OAC, we've mentioned them a few times. So she's also the teammate of our guest today, Alicja. So the three of them are also supported by Roll Recovery, who is the sponsor of this podcast. Lots of connections and ties.
So apparently we like to talk about On Athletics Club around here.
Apparently.
But before
They're
we
doing
get
awesome
on
stuff.
to any more of that, we do want to mention in the Kenyan team trials for the Olympics going on, this would have been June 19th in particular when they did the 1,500 meter race. And why this is especially of note is largely because of a very curious result that remains in conversation at the running stage right now. So the 1,500 meter and the way the Kenyan national trials works is that they'll take two spots automatically. So it's like the top two finishers are going to go as long as they have the standard. And then the third spot for their team is a discretionary one. And this is the more common approach that countries take. The United States is actually somewhat unique in the fact that they have a definite three. And so top three will go as long as they have the standard, whereas most countries have some amount of discretionary. It's usually one or two. And so in this instance, Kenya has one discretionary spot. Now, of course, they're often going to take whoever finishes third in a trials race, unless there's some kind of exigent circumstances that ask for a different consideration. That's what made this one interesting. Mm-hmm. So Kenya announced after the race that they would take the top three finishers. And, these were strong performances, great runs by the likes of Charles Simotu, Kamar Etienne, and Abel Kipsang, all running 3:32 through 3:33. So these guys are performers, and they can do it. However, fourth place was Kenyan miler star Timothy Chariot, who ran 3:30 earlier this season, world leading time, who has many international accolades under his belt and is one of the most consistent international competitors in the miler stage at all right now. You can always anticipate that Chariot's in a top performing spot. And yet, in this race, he was fourth. Mm-hmm. And the Kenyan national team did not offer the discretionary spot to him. And for many, it was a little bit baffling.
Yeah.
Why not? And of course, there's some amount of explanation there. The Kenyan national team simply made the announcement of we're going to take the top three. They all performed well. They all clearly represent capacity to run well at the Olympics. But then the question was always, there must have been something wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with Chariot. Maybe he was hurt, or maybe there's something we didn't know about. But Timothy Chariot released a statement, and we really always want to acknowledge the dignity of these athletes on such high pressure stages as these things. And Chariot's statement was just full of that dignity, which is essentially,
congratulating
the athletes.
And said, he actually said, I'm only human. I mentioned that earlier, that these athletes, even though they run superhero times, like they are humans too. And he said, I'm only human. I didn't have a great race. And congrats to my countrymen who did.
So mad respect to Chariot for comments such as those in light of a very frustrating, no doubt, experience. But also, just kind of exciting to see the teams unfolding, who is headed to the Olympics Games. So many other things going on there, but we're gonna continue to keep you updated on some of the highlights, and the U.S. team trials is going to continue through the next weekend with finals in things like the women's 10,000 meter, the men's 5K and 1,500, and women's 800.
With fire in our belly, we can sometimes have a hard time naming and executing our goals well and seeing them come to fruition by creating very tangible and achievable goals. And today we have Alicja telling us some great insights and really practical tips on goal setting, like why we should set goals, as Zach mentioned earlier, and then creating these goals with a vision in mind, and then also doing that as we're coming back from places like injury or breaks. Those are great times to implement goals too. So our guest intro, Alicja Konieczek was the 2019 gold medalist at the Universiade in Naples, Italy in 2019, and she's a 9-time D2 champion and was the winner of the 3,000 meter steeplechase recently at the European Team Championships. Now she's coached by Dathan Ritzenhein currently and is part of that OAC team that we're talking about all the time on Athletics Club. And Alicja ran a new impressive PR in the 3,000 meter steeplechase in May of this year in 9:33. Alicja is the leading Polish runner in the 3,000 meter steeplechase, and she is an Olympic hopeful. So next up for her is the Polish National Championships. Today, Alicja joins us talking about goal setting, which she's very passionate about, which you will hear. And she's designed an athletic planner, which I own, which helps runners achieve their goals in this written form. So yeah, it's a really great tool, and she'll talk about goal setting and some of the things she has in this planner too. So let's talk to Alicja. Welcome, Alicja, to the A to Z Running podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
Well, we're especially thrilled because you're in the midst of your main racing season. I mean, you won the European Team Championships not too long ago, and now coming up, you have the Polish Championship on Thursday, correct?
Yeah, that's right. You got me in the hot season here.
Yeah. Well, we're so lucky to have you. We're so excited to be cheering for you as we go into this season. And we just told our audience a little bit about you. But there's, so much more to learn about you. So we're going to get started with talking specifically about the topic of goal setting. And we know that you're really somebody who seeks after creating goals that help us achieve life as well as athletics. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yes. I've been always a big fan of goal setting. And since I was very, very little, I was leading logs. I was writing my goals for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year. Since I never even heard of it in school, I was just liking doing it. And since very, very young age, I was doing it. And then in my college career, I took it to the next level, incorporating that into athletic career, which I started setting goals for my athletic career. And then it all came together. And I've been building on that from my own experience. And then I studied exercise sports science, which we studied a lot about sports psychology. And it all kind of confirmed me in my own area to take it farther and to kind of keep practicing it and sharing it with others.
Oh, that's awesome. What a very cool mission. I absolutely love that because it's something that's not just about the numbers, but it's about having a healthy life and a healthy mind. And sometimes as athletes, we can become so super focused on numbers and then kind of neglect taking care of our minds as well. So having the daily and having the gratitude, I love the gratitude I'm grateful for at the end of each week that you have. I'm grateful for, and then that helps us reevaluate where we're at, put things in perspective, and then move forward with our goals. That is a really cool thing. So I kind of want to rewind because you said starting at a young age, you were a goal setter. Now, you have competed at a high level since you were a youth runner. So how did you develop this kind of goal setting frame of mind?
Yeah, so it started when I was in school. I was always super competitive in classroom, academic wise. So every day I wake up. I don't know. I was 9, 10 years old, and I was excited for the day. And before I got up, I literally thought about what I'm excited for today. And I was thinking, oh, this professor is returning this exam, or I have a basketball practice, or oh, we're gonna play this game in the lunch break. So every day before I got up, I literally thought about something positive that today is going to happen, and that continued for a long time. So every day I wake up and I just think about what is something to look forward. And then in athletic career, obviously numbers still matter, so I still had like a specific goals with numbers in mind and places in mind. So I took it to that level later on. But I believe when I was 13 or 14, I started like winning some small races and watching TV track stars, and I was like, I want to be an Olympian. And I was never scared to say it out loud. And people looked at me as like, you're not even close to it. And I was like, I want to be an Olympian, and I'm going to be one. And it took forever. It took 10 years, no, 13 years since I said that to actually be so close to that. But I was never afraid of my goals. And I believe that saying this out loud, let's say on social media, even sometimes just saying it out loud, having people accountable, they help, like society and relationships that we build along the way. That helps for sure with reaching our goals. So yeah, I was never afraid, even if I was 13 years old, to say I'm gonna be an Olympian. And I was like, who's this kid saying these things?
Yeah, speaking it out loud. Oh, it's so scary sometimes. At
Oh
least
yeah,
for
for
me to
sure.
like say it out loud. I love that you did that even as a child. And I think that's a great way to start. I think that we should probably encourage youth runners to speak their goals aloud like that. I think that that's a really powerful thing. So that's a great takeaway for all of you coaches listening right now.
Yeah.
Having your young athletes, well, actually any age, speak their goals aloud. That is very, very powerful. Now, you'd mentioned like people helping you along the way. Can you name a few of those relationships and how they've affected your goals?
Yeah, my motto for life is like, you cannot do it alone. Whatever happens in life wise, career, like athletic wise, you always have to have somebody that like does this one thing for you here or there, and then they help you along the way reach your goals. And if you're alone in this, I believe no one can do it. So I'm very grateful for all the coaches I had along the way, because I believe if they didn't do what they've done, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be as strong, either physically, mentally, and all this. There were bumps and ups, and these people were also making me tougher, and they were like, yelling and just criticizing. And sometimes that, like, I take it now was, it was not good at the moment, but it made me tougher, stronger, and not to be like so weak. When you see somebody powerful saying to you mean things, like, it mattered then, but now I'm thinking about it like that was not the right way, but it made me stronger and made me like, it matters what I think and what the people I love think. So then, speaking of people that I love, so obviously it'll be my family. They're huge athletics fan. They love running, they love track and field. They've been along the way the whole time, supporting when we're winning and when we're losing, when we're sick and when we're healthy, and when we're on top and on the bottom. And then my fiance that we're getting married in a couple months here in Poland, actually, he has been actually helping me on the other side, which is like, stay calm whatever happens, like. So yeah, everybody had something in it, like everybody did something along the way that helped me become who I am and where I'm at. And I could never do it alone, like sponsor wise. One person decided to help me, and then I'm here with On Running. If that person, Nicole, she never like believed in me, I probably wouldn't be sponsored by On Running. If somebody in college didn't believe in me, I wouldn't go to full ride to Colorado. So it has been all like a big road for sure. And then just people along the way you meet and help you. And I try to maintain relationships, and that is for sure a big thing. And I encourage people to do that throughout their whole life. I come back here and I see my coaches from 10 years ago, and they still know what's going on, and I still send them cards, and they might be participants at my wedding. So yeah, it's all like a big picture, but like those little things matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having those people that you can trust with your goals and trust that they'll love you no matter what, but that they really do believe in you and want to help you achieve these things that you've said. Like, since you were young, you've said you want to be an Olympian and you have a family that supports you in your athletic endeavors. What a gift. What a really cool journey that you've had. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear some of your goals that you've made that you've come to see realized, and what the process was from setting your goal to achieving your goal.
Yeah, but back in college, I started doing like pretty specific goals for athletic career. So every week I would write, I will go to swimming pool this day and this day. And then other days I'll do yoga, and I start going to these yoga classes, which I hated because it was so hard, but it was my goal and I did it. And then when I had injury, it was really important then because I was all alone. I didn't have the team around me that pushed me on my run or weights. I was just by myself. So I had a day scheduled ready. I always had a plan to do 2 hours a day of whatever cross training was. And I would divide it in the morning and in the afternoon. So I had like a goal to maintain fitness. And if I didn't have that goal, I would probably have gotten lost and just kind of be sad and alone. So it mattered more when I was injured and alone than among people that pushed me. And then other goals were probably also just like academic wise, just like get things done right away. When I had final and it opened up 2 months before the date and it was like a 15-page paper, I would write it, like I would submit the draft month before and like be done with it quickly. So it also transferred into the academic career that I would have a list of things I had to do and just like dates and like, okay, my goal is to get 3 things done of the list. And it happened. Like, it wasn't that hard. Like, if you see it in front of you, I always had to write things down. I had a lot of lists, like a lots of board in my room, like the whiteboards and sticky notes on it and everything. So like super organized, but big goal of the week was always on top of it. And then things that are happening here and what to focus more and less. And then, yeah, so it's kind of like organizing your lifestyle around all these little things you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like all the little baby steps that you make every single day. It's consistency and, having these small things that you're doing each day to get to the bigger goals of gaining fitness and getting faster, if that's one of our goals, or, making the team, things like that, like these daily actions. And I love that you write those daily actions down because they matter. Like, achieving that small goal matters to the big goal. And it's not just like, let's hurry up and like, this stuff doesn't really matter. I'll be sloppy. Like, this stuff doesn't matter. It's the later stuff, but we can't have the later stuff until we do the things every single day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
excellent.
Like one good day of training adds up to one good week of training, which adds up to 1 month, one good month of training that goes to season and year. And then you add those up and then it's hard to go down from there. Everything will be good then. So it's like, yeah, literally one day builds on each other to perform the whole season well. And yeah, for sure, it helped me through college when we have busy life. So like speaking to younger audience when they have to go to classes and do that and that. So just like having little goals, and for sure not super challenging, and yeah, it helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like, caught up some with your like your recent, was it injury or sickness or something, but you were able to like come back and then, win that European Athletic Championships. And was that a PR time? Is 9:35 your PR?
So I run 2 seconds faster a Mansac a few weeks before, and that was my PR. But yeah, 9:35 was my second fastest time ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us like how you kept your vision, how you kept your mindset when you kind of had a rough patch, but still had these big goals? So how did you see them through when things were kind of upset?
Yeah. Oh, it was super hard. It was really hard. Like April last year, I was on such a bottom. I didn't have a job because my gym closed for COVID. There was no meets, there was no Olympics. I couldn't run. I had mononucleosis that lasted 6 months, and I didn't know until like 4 months later what it was. So I was just feeling so bad every day. It was like probably one of the worst times of my life when you wake up and like you have no energy. Like I wasn't myself. I was only negative, depressing, crying and all. And like just that one was hard. Like goal setting, I didn't have any goals. I didn't know what's going to be tomorrow. I didn't know what's going to be a week from now. And it lasted for months and it was so bad. And then when I met coach Dathan Ritzenine, he's like, we will get you out of there. He was like, we will do it. And then it mattered, the community I was around, the people believed in me. Like Leah gave me a little note in a mug saying like, you got this. And because she saw me being on the bottom of all the lot, like I'll be running 830 mile pace and had heart rate of 186. Like she's like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. And I don't like it. So, and coach just assured me, we will get you out of this. And I saw a doctor one that told me that it is probably mono. And I'm like, no way. And she's like, yeah, let's do tests. So we did tests and then it turned out to be mono. And then next time I talked to her, I couldn't say anything. I was crying and I didn't even know her. And she's like, sounds like you have a seasonal depression. I'm like, no, I'm not depressed. Like, no way. I'm so strong. Like I'm Polish, like no way. And you know, in Poland, there's like this kind of stigma around depression. And she's like, well, let's see what happens. So then I talked to coach about it and he's like, yeah, lots of athletes actually struggle with this. So why won't we get on antidepressants and see what happens? And then maybe you'll feel better. And when you're back in it, we will get off it. I'm like, okay. And I did it and it helped so much. Just like, yeah, the medication helped and just the community I was around and just the coach. He was like, you know, somebody that always like told me it's going to be okay. And then one day I felt better and I was so excited. Like I remember what it means to feel good again. Because I was like, am I gonna feel like this forever? So yeah, one day I felt good. I'm like, oh my God, that's how it feels good, you know? And then next week I had 2 good days. And then the following week, 3 good days. And it just kept building on. And the moment we started doing workouts, I felt myself again. And then goal setting came back to place. And I was like, nope, I'm doing it. I'm gonna race this and make it happen and just be back because I'm around this awesome fast people and coach is like one of the best in the world. Like this is win-win. So whatever I was struggling with, it was past, but for sure it built over and over. And yeah, I mean, made me stronger, but it also made me realize how important the mental health is. And like just being alone during COVID, lots of people were alone and I was lucky to join the team and be surrounded by people that empower me and help me. So yeah, that's the long story in short.
Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not scared anymore. I always think what I say, and like when people hear I'm on antidepressants, especially here, they're like, "Oh my God, it's crazy!" And I speak to so many people in America. Like a lot of athletes are like on those because either injuries or bad seasons, and they just like, you know, the self-identity you have connected to sport, it kind of goes away. And then who are you? And then, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it happens a lot too, especially after COVID. Like when I went to pick up my medication, the pharmacy said they're out because the lab can't produce fast enough for all these people. And I think it was July or June or July. So yeah, like right in the middle of COVID. So it was kind of crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So anyone who's listening here today, wherever you're listening, wherever you are, if you're running, if you're in your car and you're like, man, I feel like I am not feeling myself. Even someone like Alicia is going to say, hey, I'm going to reach out and get some help. And we're going to figure this out. And I can have goals again and I can feel better again. So thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of us feel like that, like I'm alone in this, and we don't have to be.
Yeah, you're right. We're not machines. Like we're only humans, and all the pressure coming from either sport or job or life, like sometimes just puts us down. And like there are other ways, you know, I have the app to do mindfulness and it helps too. So there are other ways to maintain mental health, but that one was for me probably the best. Yeah.
Now, I heard in a video, it's part of a series, that Dathan says that you keep things fun, that you keep things light. So tell me about your role on the team and how you are a goal-oriented person, yet you're able to bring the fun. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm like, my goal for life was to be remembered. Like, that was like what I want to do. Like, for athletic was to be an Olympian. And after the season, I don't know what's gonna happen because I already reached my goal. I need to think of another one. But then for my life, it was to be remembered. And how I'm gonna do this? Like, I'm not gonna be a world champion. You know, you have to be realistic in your goals. So like, I want to be remembered, and the way I want to be remembered is this positive, loud, optimistic person that comes from nowhere with this accent that barely people can understand and just like makes fun of the situation that is we're currently in. And you know, many days we like have hard workouts and it's like it's bad, like it's really hard. And so, and just like having this positive attitude and just like rapping a song that I don't even know and just doing these crazy things, like I feel like everybody kind of like a little bit is annoyed at the end, right? But like it's also better than thinking about, okay, the next rep is this and that and that and whatever, you know. So like sometimes we're like running crazy workout and like I'm at the end dying, I'm like, girls, we're killing it, and they're like, hell yeah, we are. So just like kind of be remembered as this positive, like loud person. And I'm definitely loud and my voice is also very powerful and strong. Like Dayton told me, you have this coach's voice. I'm like, yeah. I want to be a coach one day. So that's the thing. Yeah, I just want to be remembered as this optimistic person. And yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, you don't feel like 100 like that optimistic every day, but I try my best and I try to do this all the time. And before one sports game, actually, this is a good example. I was so stressed to compete at the European championships in Berlin, which was my first like big stage meet. And then I'm like super loud and like this powerful and this like I don't know, strong person, right, that never like gives up. And I don't listen to these people that say all these bad things to me or something. And then I was so stressed and I didn't want to race and I was thinking of excuses not to race. Like it's kind of normal before such a big stage meet. And then this coach comes to my room and I'm bawling like, I don't want to race. And he's like, I would never think you can cry. I'm like, wow, that's what my perception of me is among others, you know, like I didn't know you can cry. Like, so yeah, I can, but like I try not to, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know that you are making that impact already. Like for me to know all the way in Michigan that you're a positive shining light and that you bring the fun. I mean, your reputation, you're living out your goal right now because we all know you as this, and you know many of us have yet to meet you in person, but your reputation is that you're positive light. That's a really cool reputation to have.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, this means a lot. Yeah, I need to be better at this kind of stuff to kind of capture it and post it on social media to like have it there to see others to be like empowered and just like make their day. But you know, not always. Just like there's camera or something. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's when your life is kind of like in the limelight like yours, like, you know, people actually are following your running and they see you at these events, they know who you are, that there is the opportunity for them to like get to know you in this sense where like people aren't really going to get to know me as well, you know what I mean? So like it's really cool that you can spread that cheer or that like happiness so much farther because of your influence.
Yeah. I mean, I always zone out sometimes before important races. I can calm down and, you know, kind of zone out and have sunglasses, hat. Nobody can like actually, like, I kind of make myself accessible. Like, so kind
Yeah.
of want to be left alone. But after the race, like, let's do it. Let's do whatever you have in mind. Like, let's go crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you need to be focused before your race. There's a lot there. So I wanted to kind of like go back to, you know, your process for goal setting because you had mentioned a few different aspects. Would you talk our audience through some of the important elements of goal setting?
Yes. So in my athlete's planner, I created a little chart that helps set those goals. And I'm gonna right now say those. So it's like SMART goals, which I've studied in sports psychology. So it's like as a specific. So you can't just say one thing, oh, I'm gonna be faster, you know, like what does it mean? I'm gonna be faster or better. Like you have to be specific, like, okay, I want to run under this time, or I want to perform well at conference meet or a regional. Like, what does it mean? Well, like top 8, top 10, whatever it is. But then it has to be measurable, which goes along this way. And next, achievable. Like, I'm not telling myself I'm gonna win the Olympics. Like, it's not gonna happen. I mean, it's not like I don't believe it. Like, but it's not going to happen. You have to be realistic. So then it's realistic and relevant. Like, doesn't matter for me to have a goal to that is going along with my life. Like, that means relevant, that I'm going to, let's say how do we say it? Yeah, I set my goals for athletic career, my life career. I don't do like other topics that don't matter in my life. That goes along with their relevance. And then time based, like, when do you want to accomplish that goal? So that helps kind of be like make a goal that meets all this criteria and kind of like make it reachable for you. And I mean, success is not winning. Like, your success is your success. It's not your coach's success or your parents or whoever wants you to succeed. Like, you know what means for you to success. And for me, every time I get into a line for race, obviously I want to win, but my goal is to be happy after. Like, whatever happens, like if I'm gonna do my best, give it all, and I win, that's great. But if I give my best and get fourth, like, or 10th, I'm still happy. Like, that was my goal and I reached my goal. And then if I didn't give my best, then there is something to improve next time. So like, just like kind of determining that your goal is your goal. Like, nobody else can set those goals for you. And then there's other also criteria that will help you. Just like having not only goals for your athletic career or one field of your life, because what if your career is over, or what if something happens and you can't? So then you lose totally self-identity. So that there's the other thing, you have to have like a kind of B plan, like what you want to gonna do within the after your career, or within your career in the free time. Like, maybe build, like, learn new language, or like kind of work on special skills that you really like and you are good at, and develop them into a different career path. So I'm kind of trying to do that currently with my free time, not to be overwhelmed by thinking of running 100% of the time, because then you go crazy. So I do think that you have to have like a second hobby, second thing in your life, because then if everything is, you put all the eggs in one basket, then it's like, it's not healthy after everything is over. And we've seen and heard those cases. Recently there was this book came out, right? And then, so yeah, you have to be careful with that too. But setting goals in different aspects of life for sure is good. And then those criteria that I just mentioned should help. But there are a lot of different criteria as well. And Google has many, and I only spend one page in my planner for it, but it's at the very beginning. So every time you open it, you like remind yourself what your big goal is. And then for the week you're training at, you can see the little goal that you have set for the week. So it's kind of constant reminder and written and down, and it's not going anywhere. Like, so yeah, those little things I think matter too.
Yeah. Important stuff. You know, I do really appreciate you, because we're a running podcast, so we talk mostly about running, but it is true that it's so good to have other goals besides running in order for us to live a fulfilled life. And if running is, you know, like there's a period of time we can't run, or, you know, there comes a time in life where we're not able to, that we have built this other hobby that can bring us joy as well. So if I may ask, what is that for you?
Well, I really want to be a coach. So I'm currently like coaching few athletes, and I'm really trying my best to learn different methods, philosophies, read some books about training philosophies, and not necessarily implement them, because I think whatever I went through so many coaching methods that I kind of developed a way that really worked, and I saw what worked for others and for them. I always observe and I see what other people are doing, and it's like fascinating for me. So I kind of try to stay active in the coaching area, and to be like I want to be one of the best coaches later on in my life and my career. And then the current environments I'm in, I can see how like Emma Coburn trains, and I can see how like the 400-meter women in Poland train, and like kind of seeing all these best claps, and like always reaching out and asking questions, why they're doing this and why not that and that. And coaches also, I ask lots of coaches what they do, what they like, what they don't. And then seeing athletes and women, always asking them how do they feel and how do they like this and that. So kind of developing my knowledge in the coaching criteria. And then I'm coaching for this platform Chasky. So I have 3 athletes there, and they're all different, which is crazy. One woman she's in her 60s and she's just trying to maintain health. And the other guy is super powerful guy from India, and he's just like so fired up about running. And then I picked up a few other athletes here that want to be coached, and I just do it for free. So like it's kind of like my passion. So I do that, and in the meantime, I'm developing a little business with generators, altitude generators, because there's no much long distance in Poland. Like the level of running distance in United States it's incredible. Like so many guys run 27 minutes. Like in Poland, we don't have anybody under 29 minutes. So many women run in the 15s in US, even in the 14s, and in Poland, nobody. And I'm like, why is that? Like, what's going on? Like, so then I realized, like, in US, the best people go altitude training, and in Poland, we don't have this kind of mountains. They have to go to Switzerland, but then they have to spend all these euros. So I order few altitude generators, and then I'll be renting those to those athletes. So that's my part of the business that I'm building currently this summer, and I believe I'm gonna launch it later on this summer after the Olympics. But yeah, I kind of want to help them to become so competitive in the distance, because they are training hard. It's not like they're not. It's just something is lacking, and I believe it could be that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. You're a
Oh, yeah.
problem solver. That's what I'm like gathering from what you're telling me, is that you like to figure things out and that you're a problem solver. And
Yeah.
part of the goal setting, it seems like you're like, okay, let's create a plan. I like the way you think. I think that that's a really special thing, and it has been a big part of your success as an athlete, but I'm excited to see what these future endeavors hold for you.
Yeah, you always have to be checking things and looking out and seeing what's there and what's not. And I feel like that's the moment for me to do this in Poland. And then yeah, Coach Ritz calls me go getter, because I do the planner and now I do this. And I always like, hey coach, like these flights are so much cheaper. You have to just go through this website, through that. And he's like, that's so much more work. I'm like, but it's worth it. And like, all these little things where you like take the extra step, but like either save money or think of something that other people need and they don't have. So yeah, I mean, it's growing slowly, very slowly, but it's growing, and that's something keeps me busy and something I like. So and I'm really proud of, because it helps these young athletes, which I wish I had that when I was little.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So my final question is, what are some goals that you have for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, my lifetime goal, becoming an Olympian, is coming up very soon. I will know for sure in probably 10 days. I'm on the list, very high up, so everybody is positive. But until that happens, I'm not sure. But after that, so there is a goal next week that me and my sister are very, very close to running both at the Olympics. And that barely happens in athletics, track and field. So my goal is for us to run really fast times so she can go to Olympics. I might have to sacrifice myself. I might have to pace the whole thing and help her and whatever. And she will have to run really fast to make it happen. So that's like a very big goal also, because she's my sister and we're just like, we've been best friends forever. I mean, not that big friends in teenage years, but now we are very close. So that's one goal. And then another goal would be for the summer to like run really close to the Polish record in the steeplechase, which Olympics should allow me to do that, depending on the race and everything. But I mean, everybody wants to make the final, but I don't know if the Polish record will be enough to make the final. Like, the level of competition in the world, especially with the COVID past year, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there will be like 5 world records again. Looking at the current meets, and all these people, women especially, crushing the fields in the 10K and 5Ks and everything, you never know. So yeah, I kind of just can control myself and my own goals. So my goal will be to run as close as I can to that, and whatever it takes and whatever it gives me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll be cheering for you. Our audience will be cheering for you. Good luck to you at the Polish Championships coming up here in a few days. We are just so thrilled to have gotten the chance to get to know you a little more. I wish that these interviews were like 2 hours long, but they'll be able to follow you on social media. Would you give our audience your handle on social media?
Yeah, it's my first name, my last name. So AliCjaKonieczek. But yeah, you can probably just find me somewhere there.
Perfect. Well, we look forward to it, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you, A to Z Running Podcast.
Well, many thanks to Alicja and Andy, since I was not part of it, but I appreciate immensely, just like the rest of you do, the conversation, and especially thinking about an early comment Alicja made that just really stuck with me, where she was addressing early on in life, just feeling like she always wanted to have a positive thing to anticipate. Wake up in the morning with something positive to anticipate on the day. And I thought to myself, as a pessimist, that's actually not a bad way to combat that early morning pessimism that I tend to experience.
Before the coffee.
Well, no, I tend to experience the pessimism all the time, but this is definitely a great insight for all of us. There's always good. Looking for that when we start our day is not a bad thing.
No, I think that's an excellent takeaway too, to have something intentional like that each morning that can help us get in the mindset to chase after our goals. And we talked about too during this episode about having a running goal, but then having another goal in life as well. But with our running goals, we do want them to be measurable. We do want them to be achievable, and we do want to have a plan, because these things, as we know, that's why we create the goal, is to have these short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals be something that we can tangibly track. And when we do that, it really does help us focus and hone in. And as endurance athletes, many of us listening are endurance athletes, sometimes it's hard to see that finish line. And it just seems so far away, 6 months of training for a marathon. And it's really great that we can have something to look forward to each week, to know what we're doing to chip away at these kinds of goals.
And I would venture to suggest that for many of us, it's actually hard to come up with, like, how do I know certain things are leading me toward the next goals? Like, if my marathon goal is to run a Boston qualifying marathon in 6 months from now, how do I know what goal to have this week that's really truly making a difference for that long-term goal? And that goes back to the comment we always make, is know the purpose of your training. So what is it that I'm trying to do right now, and why is that helping me achieve ultimately these long-term goals?
I appreciate that Kate said that in her race recap.
Indeed,
too.
she did.
Yeah, that was great.
Which is why I was thinking of it just now, in fact.
Well, Alicja, she's going to be competing in the Polish Championship, so send her some well wishes. Let her know that you listen to this podcast and that we're rooting for her over in Poland as she attempts to qualify for the Olympic Games and become an Olympian, which was one of the goals she mentioned on this podcast. We appreciate you all listening. Thank you so much. Next week, we're going to have a lot to share about the Olympic trials and some recaps there, so stay tuned and subscribe.